HOA Karen won't stop swimming in my private pool, so I came up with a plan. The summer sun beat down on the quiet suburban neighborhood, where most families spent their afternoons indoors, sipping lemonade or enjoying the cool breeze of their air conditioning. But for Ryan, his favorite retreat was his backyard oasis, a pristine swimming pool he had worked tirelessly to maintain. To him, it wasn't just a pool, it was his safe space, his investment, and his pride. But lately, that peace had been disrupted in a way that turned his world upside down. It all started with Karen. Every neighborhood had one. A person who seemed determined to make everyone else's life miserable. Karen was the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA, though no one had ever asked her to take that role. She wore her authority like a crown, barking orders, writing notes, and wagging her finger at anyone who dared to cross her imaginary lines. For months, Ryan had kept his head down, ignoring her comments about the length of his grass or the color of his patio furniture. But when she started helping herself to his pool, things crossed a line. One warm afternoon, Ryan came home from work early, looking forward to a quick swim before dinner. As he opened his back door, he froze. There, in his pool, lounging on a bright pink floaty as if it belonged to her, was Karen. Her oversized sunglasses glinted in the sun, and she was sipping from a cup that clearly wasn't hers. "Excuse me?" Ryan called out, his voice calm but strained. Karen casually removed her sunglasses, looked at him, and shrugged. "The pool's not being used. It seemed wasteful to leave it empty on a day like this." Ryan blinked, almost convinced he was in some strange dream. "This is my private property. You can't just waltz in here." Karen chuckled, completely unfazed. "Actually, under HOA regulations, community members can access unused amenities if they're not locked." Ryan knew she was bluffing. There was no such rule. But he also knew Karen was the type who thrived on confrontation, and fighting her directly would only add fuel to her fire. That day, he let it go, thinking it was a one-time incident. But he was wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, Karen made herself more and more comfortable. Sometimes she swam laps in the morning while Ryan was at work. Other times she brought a book and stretched out on his pool chair as if it were her private resort. The audacity was staggering. At first, Ryan considered calling the police, but he knew how that would play out. Karen would twist the narrative, spin it into some story about how he had invited her, or how the HOA technically allowed it. She had a way of making lies sound like truths, and Ryan had no desire to get caught in her drama. But then something happened that changed everything. One Saturday afternoon, Ryan had invited his niece and nephew over for a swim. The kids were excited, splashing in the water while he grilled burgers on the patio. Suddenly the back gate creaked open, and there she was, Karen, marching in with her towel over her shoulder and a smug smile on her face. "Pool's busy today, huh?" she quipped, as if she had every right to be there. The kids froze, confused by the stranger. Ryan quickly stepped forward, blocking her path. "Not today, Karen. This is family time." But Karen wasn't the type to take no for an answer. She planted herself by the poolside, insisting she had just as much right to be here as anyone else. That's when Ryan saw the fear in his niece's eyes, the discomfort on his nephew's face. They shouldn't have to deal with this kind of intrusion. That was the moment Ryan decided enough was enough. He needed a plan that wouldn't just push Karen away for a day, but one that would put an end to her pool invasions for good. Ryan spent the next week quietly preparing. He researched HOA bylaws, consulted with a lawyer friend, and even installed a few discreet cameras around his backyard. If Karen wanted to play the rulebook game, he would beat her at it, but fairly and with proof. The first step was catching her red-handed, and, as expected, she didn't disappoint. On Tuesday morning, while Ryan was at work, the cameras captured Karen slipping through his side gate, towel in hand. She didn't hesitate. She made herself right at home in his pool, sipping from a bottle of soda she had brought. Ryan smiled when he reviewed the footage. Step 1, complete. But footage alone might not be enough. He needed the HOA board involved. He gathered his evidence, printed it out, and prepared a calm, thorough complaint. At the next HOA meeting, he arrived early, sat quietly, and waited for his turn to speak. When the moment came, he stood, addressed the board, and laid out everything: dates, times, footage, and even copies of the HOA bylaws that clearly stated private property boundaries. Karen was there too, sitting smugly in the corner, but as Ryan projected the video onto the meeting screen, her face turned red. The room buzzed with whispers. One board member leaned forward, frowning. "Karen, this is a serious violation. You cannot use another resident's private amenities without permission." Karen stammered, tried to spin her usual tales about community rights, but this time no one bought it. The evidence was too strong. The board issued her a formal warning and a fine. But Ryan wasn't done yet. He knew Karen. Fines and warnings weren't enough to deter her. So he took things one step further. He had the locks on his gate changed to a custom system that only he could access. He also posted a sign that read, "Private property. Trespassers will be reported." It was subtle, but firm. The next time Karen tried her old trick, she was met with a locked gate and a very visible camera staring back at her. She rattled the handle, glanced around nervously, and finally stormed off in frustration. Ryan watched from his kitchen window, a small smile tugging at his lips. His plan had worked. For the first time in weeks, his backyard felt like his again. But the victory wasn't just about keeping Karen out. It was about reclaiming his peace, his family's comfort, and his right to enjoy the home he had worked so hard for. Over the next few days, neighbors who had seen the footage came up to him, offering support. Many of them had their own Karen stories, but had never been able to stop her. Ryan's quiet determination had inspired them. It wasn't just about the pool anymore. It was about standing up to unfairness and showing that respect for one another's boundaries mattered. And Karen? Well, she learned that even self-proclaimed queens of the HOA couldn't bend the rules forever. Ryan knew she'd find some new crusade, some new target, but he was ready. Because this time, he had proven that no matter how persistent she was, there was always a way to outsmart her without stooping to her level. In the end, Ryan's pool sparkled under the summer sun, free from unwanted guests. His niece and nephew came back for another swim, laughing freely without fear of interruption. As he watched them play, Ryan felt a deep sense of relief. The battle had been stressful, yes, but it had also been worth it. And to anyone else facing a Karen in their life, he had one simple message: don't give up. Stay calm, stay smart, and always stand your ground. Because peace of mind is worth fighting for. And if you've ever dealt with a Karen who wouldn't respect your space, don't just let it slide. Stand tall, protect what's yours, and remember, there's always a plan that works. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more HOA dramas and emotional journeys, because sometimes the quietest neighborhoods hold the loudest battles, and every story has a lesson worth learning.